to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different than usual. I know it's a podcast on grief and grieving, but I want to talk a little bit about dying. I mean, it's, that's precursor to grief sometimes, or cause of grief, etc. But it's also, what I do for a living. And really, I've been meaning to kind of bring this subject up. And I've talked about this a little bit in episodes here and there, but I wanted to devote an entire episode to the topic of dying at home, because this is one of those things I hear from pretty much everybody, even in just casual conversations. When people talk about death and dying, everybody says, I want to die at home. And of course you do. This is probably the number one wish of most people is, I would like to die at home. I mean, I would too, right? I think we all would prefer that, given the option. Sometimes we don't get that luxury of getting to choose. But if we have that option, all of us would choose to die at home. Why? Well, home is where we feel safe. It's our home. That's right there in the title. But it's where we feel comfortable and safe and warm. And who wants to be in an unfamiliar territory surrounded by beeps and boops and weird strangers and people poking you all hours of the night, or, a lonely nursing home with nobody there, right? We all want to die at home, surrounded by family and or friends, for the most part. I'm not going to generalize. I've known people who have told me quite the opposite. But for the most part, that's everybody's wish, is to die at home. And something I hear about a lot from clients, obviously, this is what they want. So, yes, we do have that option here in the United States. But there's a big but here. There's a lot that goes into dying at home. And it's not as super simple as just lying in your bed and passing away. It can be, but overall, it's not. And let's talk about that. Okay. First and foremost, if this is something you feel very passionate about, and you really do say, if the time comes, when the time comes, I want to be at home, and that is an option to you, plan ahead. There's so much you need to know. It's not, like I said, it's not super simple, and there's a lot that goes into it. So you need to plan ahead. If you do have a diagnosis of something terminal, be it cancer, ALS, whatever it might be, Alzheimer's, and you know, eventually I'm going to die from this, I would like to die at home, start planning now. Don't wait until you're sick, and don't wait until you're unable to do things or make decisions on your own, and don't put it on your family, if at all possible. Sometimes we don't have that luxury, but if we do have that luxury of time and, forewarning, foreknowledge, use that. Start now. You need to start researching. And also, I promise I'm not just trying to pimp my own business here, but this is why end-of-life doulas are becoming so popular, because we have the knowledge and the experience of these things to help you make informed and correct decisions. So if that is something you might have the ability to do, find a doula, and yes, we're not covered. We can't bill back to Medicaid, so most of us are private pay, but there are some of us out here that are willing to do pro bono work here and there. So, if you have no money, it doesn't matter. Most of us are doing this because we want to. We're not in it for the money. Because let me tell you, you don't make much. So find a doula that can help you and do it when, like I said, do it at diagnosis. Or if you don't even have a diagnosis, but you're getting, older in years and you're starting to lose some of your freedoms and your abilities, that's when you start making these plans, not when it's the 11th hour. Okay. So find a doula who can help you walk through these. If you would rather do it on your own, or you have a family member who's willing to take this on, great. That's fine. But you need to start making your plans ahead of time. And if hospice is going to be involved, start researching that. Do it now. Even if you're not, quote unquote, eligible for hospice, that doesn't mean you can't research the ones in your area. Look up what hospices are in your city or in your state or in your area and what services they provide. Go ahead and call them. You can call hospices and ask them questions for free and without any type of commitment. Just ask them, What services do you provide? How frequently do you come? Do you have aides available to help with like household tasks and showering? Because hospice doesn't always do things like that. So those are other things you need to take into consideration too. Are you going to need help with household chores? Are you going to need help bathing and with personal care? Because sometimes not all hospices provide services for that. Some do, some don't. Again, this is why you got to call them and start researching this well ahead of time. Know what you're eligible for and what you're not. And guys, don't worry about hospice. It's covered by Medicare and Medicaid. So especially if you're, past the age of 65 and you're receiving Medicare, it's covered. You don't have to worry about paying for this. If you're younger and you don't have that, there are still ways to get this paid for so that you don't have to pay out of pocket. Again, this is why you talk to a doula or talk to a social worker at the hospice. They'll figure out how to get this paid for. So don't worry about, I don't have the money for this. Okay? So once you have the basis of, okay, I think I may end up going with this hospice, they have everything I need, know what to ask for. Know what you need. Let's say you finished treatment and you're in the last few months of your life and you're ready to actually start hospice. Know what you need. Know what equipment you're going to want. I mean, odds are pretty good they're going to give you a hospital bed, which a lot of people say I'd rather die in my own bed. And I believe me, I would love to die in my own bed too, but that's not feasible. It's just not for the most part. The staff and the nurses need to be able to access your body, and they might need to raise or lower you. They might need to raise your head or lower your head depending on your breathing and what you need. A hospital bed's going to have to happen. So let's back up a little bit. How's your house set up? Where will you be? If you have a tiny bedroom up a tiny winding staircase, that's not going to work. They can't get the equipment up there, and their staff might not be able to get in and out of the room. Is the room big enough to have 2 or 3 people in it with you? If you've got a teeny tiny little bedroom and the whole bed's taking up the room, you can't have room for your friends and family to be in there, plus the nurses or chaplain. Do you have the space? Where will you physically be within the room? Is it accessible? Is there privacy? Like for me, thinking of the home I live in now, quite honestly, my dining room would be perfect for that. We don't have a dining room table. I use it as a gym right now. If I'm dying, I'm not going to need the gym. So we move the gym equipment out, put a hospital bed right in the middle. There's 2 beautiful windows that look out in our beautiful backyard. That would be perfect. And it's right inside. It's easy for people to get to. There's plenty of space around me, things like that. So think about your physical space. Where are they going to be? So then going back to equipment, what are you going to need? A hospital bed's probably going to happen. You might have those rolling bedside tables that raise and lower like you have at the hospital. You'll probably have those. A plastic commode that's next to the bed if you're still able to get in and out of bed and you're not catheterized. Those are going to be like the big ones right there. You may have oxygen, but think about what else. Like I talked about earlier, are you going to need help with personal care? If you don't have family that's willing to do that, you might need that. You might need somebody to help give you a bed bath or take a bath or, a shower, things like that. So along with that, be prepared to know you might have to hire outside help. Okay, again, like a doula or an aide. You might have to have housekeeping. But with things like that, especially with things like housework or lawn care, if you have a home with a yard, are you part of a church? Are you part of a community? Do you have a group of friends that would be willing to jump in and do things like this? And this is something I talked about on what to say, what not to say to people who are grieving. Offering specific help. This is where things like that can come in. Like I have a friend who would be like, I will be happy to mow your lawn for you anytime you need. Great. I have that person in my back pocket. I know I can call that person and be like, hey, can you come mow my lawn every other week or whatever? Or shovel the walk if it's winter. Things like that. But if you don't have any of that, hiring help might have to happen. So that's just something to keep in mind. Again, hospice doesn't always provide all of these things. And I've heard some horror stories. I don't want to say horror stories, but some bad stories of hospice that comes in and they just like throw you the stuff and like, here you go. And then they leave. Well, especially with medications, be prepared to understand that you as a caregiver might have to handle administering some, not all. Most times nurses will do that, but they will give you a box. Most hospices will give you a box that has things like some Ativan, and extra morphine patches, and just some like emergency needs. They might not go over when to use them and how. Ask questions. When you start on hospice, ask questions. And if they've left and you thought, oh God, what do I do with all this? Start writing them down. And next time a nurse comes in, go through the list. Ask questions. And again, this is where a doula can come in handy as well. Most hospices will have a 24-hour line you can call for questions. But if something comes up, you're like, Mom's so agitated, I don't know what to do. They can walk you through that. And that's going to happen, unfortunately. There might be some agitation, and slapping morphine on somebody might not help that. So just be prepared to ask for help, and be prepared that you might have to hire some additional help if you don't have a community to help you with things like that. You're going to need somebody that's not you as the dying person to be in charge, to be the point person. Again, this is where doulas come in. But if you don't have that or don't want that, if you have a family member that's willing to do it, great. But you need to have one person, maybe two, to be the central point person to be in charge of everything. Because there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out of the house, especially with hospice. And they may not have consistency. It depends on the organization, what their staff is like. You might not have the same nurse every single time. You might have different nurses every time. And sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, well, this nurse said this, I need to make the decision of what's going to happen, or at least to communicate between the nurses in case they're not communicating with each other. I would hope they would, but you don't know. But you need to have somebody be in charge. If you are going to be that person, keep in mind, you're going to become mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. Have help. Ask for help. Okay? Again, I keep saying this, and I promise I'm not just trying to pimp my own business here, but doulas are huge for this. Our services are invaluable because caregiver fatigue is real. It happens without warning. It'll just be a few weeks in and you can't handle making another decision. Having somebody to just kind of help guide you through these processes can be huge. So that's a lot. I gave you a lot of things to think about. This is why I cannot express enough how important it is to plan ahead. We don't always have that luxury, but some of us do. If there's a diagnosis involved, even if it's not terminal yet, you have cancer the first time around, okay? You might go through treatment, go into remission, and be fine the rest of your long life. But there's always that chance once you've had cancer, the odds of you getting cancer again is increased a lot. So it's just something to keep in mind. Just start, even if you don't have a fully written plan, just have something in the back of you. Write down something in a notebook. Like, these are the things I want. These are the things I need. This is how I'd like for things to go. Recognize you might not get everything you want, right? In a perfect world, we'd all get to die exactly the way we want to, but that's not always feasible. So have a little grace and a little bit of flexibility with things like that. Okay? Yeah. All right. That was a lot, but this is such important information. I just cannot express how many people I talk to on practically a daily basis who have a story of just not being prepared and things going so poorly. And I say it a million times with hospice, you cannot call them too early. You can't. So many times when people tell me, oh, my father was on hospice, my uncle was on hospice, I will ask them to tell me about their experience. And 9 times out of 10, they tell me hospice came in 2 weeks or a week or 2 days before their person passed away. That's not enough time. Hospice can provide so much comfort for you and your family, and it can actually extend your final days, even if it's just by a week. It can give you better quality of life in your last days. Okay? Whew, that's a lot. But this is just so important. I can't express this enough. Please, 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 please. If you appreciated this episode, share it with somebody that you think might benefit from this information. Please. That's all I ask. Okay. Without further ado, we're at the end of the episode, so it is time for me to pull a card from the Death Deck. Woo! Although today I'm going to do the end of life deck. So that's because that just seems appropriate because we're talking about dying. So, all right. I'm going to shuffle them up here. Pull one at random. Oh, how appropriate. What is your ideal location to take your last breath? A, there's no place like home. B, in a well-staffed hospital. Or C, a hospice house or similar residential setting. Okay. First of all, real quick, that last thing. Most times, hospices don't have a physical location. They're just a company that will come to your home, or to if you're in a nursing facility or a long-term stay. There are some hospice facilities. Most of them are only for respite care for a few. I'm sorry, I'm just educating you guys to death. So just that's something to keep in mind. But obviously, I would pick A. We all would. That's what I said right at the beginning of this episode. Most all of us want to die at home, and that's perfectly natural. Again, knowing that's not always feasible. Okay. Well, thank you. I would love to hear what you thought of this, or if you have stories or experiences with hospice or end-of-life work. I would love to hear from you. Please reach out. You can find me at NikkiTheDeathDoula.com. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all Nikki the Death Doula. No, not Twitter. TikTok. Twitter's gone. No, it's X now. I'm not going to go into this. I do not have an account with X. But I do have a TikTok. You can find me on there. Please feel free to reach out to me in the DMs on any of those platforms if that's easier for you. But I would love to hear from you. If you appreciate what I do and want to support me, I would love that. You can find me at patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. You get early access to my podcast episodes ad-free, and twice a week grief affirmations and other bonus content. I'm hoping to get some more out there pretty soon. I might do some Q&As or some meetups with some of my Patreons. I only have a handful right now, so, I'd like some more. It'd be great. Okay. And before I sign off, a quick shout out to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's totally online, all virtual. So, it's all virtual except the therapists are not. They're like actual people that will help you. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with tons of different issues. And to get started, you just answer a few simple questions about your needs and preferences, and BetterHelp will match you with the right therapist for you from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable. Text, chat, phone, video call. You can message your therapist anytime. Schedule live sessions when it works for you. If you're working third shift and you want to talk to somebody at 7 a.m., awesome. You can do that. If for any reason your therapist isn't working out, you can switch to a different one, no cost whatsoever. Speaking of cost, you can get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp if you go to betterhelp.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. And that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Please don't forget to follow me on Apple, Spotify, no longer Stitcher, it's gone. I'm on Amazon now. I'm on Amazon Music for podcasts, so you can follow me there too. Leave a review. Say a few words about how just utterly amazing I am, because that helps the algorithms and people can find me. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. And grief doesn't always have to suck.